Despite his numerous flaws, Magnus the Red is one of my favorite characters in the entire setting. He truly embodies the Greek tragedy theme of 40k exceptionally well. He's an all-powerful demigod born of the literal creator of humanity and one of the most formidable psychers in the known universe, but all of those gifts ultimately caused his undoing. He was an overthinker and an overachiever, constantly in pursuit of knowledge and the answers to life's great mysteries. And all that aspiration led to what he is now. A man completely ruled and undone by his own nature and complete lack of self-control. His undeniable brilliance would end up going to his head plenty of times, and in the words of the Great Wise One, some of the most intelligent otters I've ever met are completely lacking in common sense. He's basically if Fraser Crane had psionic abilities well beyond comprehension. His infatuation with the warp soon became an addiction. Even after the Emperor warned him of the dangers of exploring the warp, he just kept nosing around. Hell, even Perturabo tried his hand in dissuading Magnus. He built a device that basically allowed anyone and everyone to look into the warp, at Magnus's request of course, and had him come to his home planet to show it off and then smashed it into a million pieces. Unfortunately, this just did more harm than good. Also pretty depressing that Perturabo literally poured his heart out to help his brother and it fell on deaf ears. Now you're probably thinking, Mishmash, why do you like this character? He sounds like a jackass. He has so much potential but ends up putting that potential to the worst possible ideas and decisions. But I think this is why I like him so much though. He's quite relatable because of his discontent with just going with the flow in a lot of ways. I find him to be one of the more human-like Primarchs in that he just can't be satisfied with just accepting the universe's rules at face value. He needed to know why and how. And being that he's probably one of the most unique Primarchs, I can't blame him. Too much. No, make no mistake, I know this guy's an asshole. Despite what you may think about Magnus so far, he was actually incredibly wise. And it wasn't as if he was some sort of social pariah to his brothers. Well, some at least. What truly seemed to mentally cripple him were decisions of great importance. He seemed to get completely stun-locked and his brain would do a septuple backflip anytime he was tasked with making a choice that would drastically impact the flow of the galaxy. Which is kind of understandable, I guess. I mean, come on, he could have clearly just sent a text to the Emperor on how his brother was completely losing his marbles and ready to wage war, and maybe not brain blast through the Imperial Palace, unleashing a shitload of demons, sacrificing several innocent psychers in the process, just so he could tell him in person and look like a giant human torch. The more I reminisce about this character, the less and less I sympathize with him, but I don't know, I can't help but love him. Speaking of the Emperor, I think their relationship is easily the most heartbreaking aspect of Magnus' story, besides Perturabo, of course. The Emperor was rather robotic in his love for his sons, but he and Magnus shared a special bond. During the Emperor's crusade to find his lost sons, he and Magnus actually telepathically communicated years before they met in person. During this time, the Emperor actually tried to help guiding and sharpening Magnus' psionic potential. The relationship is always interesting to me, as I really did feel the Emperor had a deep connection with Magnus. It could be easily argued that the Emperor just did this for his own sake and for the sake of humanity, but he did warn Magnus on numerous occasions of the dangers of underestimating the warp, even for a being as powerful as he was. There were parts of the warp that even the Emperor wouldn't tread. But we all know Magnus. Not exactly one to heed good advice. Magnus meant well and had foreseen the nightmarish future of what was to come, but his good intentions mean very little when the damage has been done. Not just the damage caused between his relationship with the Emperor, the destruction of his own planet, essentially the project that would give humanity a fighting chance against chaos. Magnus lost his humanity, a literal piece of him known as the Noble Shard. The shards of Magnus are basically puzzle pieces to Magnus' very soul. Once he had lost the Noble one, his downfall was inevitable, as this single piece was basically the one thing keeping him in check. Magnus wasn't a bad guy. He was content with his brother killing him, knowing if he and his beloved legion were dead, Tzeentch couldn't use him as pawns. But without the shard, he quickly changed his mind and then he got his spine snapped. The turmoil within him after the literal glassing of his home planet was like a mixed bowl of shit soup. This insight to his character is why I like him. He isn't just some egotistical maniac that didn't care about his actions, he wanted to help his father, he wanted to do the right thing. He felt his decisions during the burning of Prospero were for the benefit of the Imperium and his father. But after a failed attempt at recovering the Noble Shard, his ascension, or rather descension into demonhood was complete. The man once known as Magnus was dead. His mind was completely molded into the worst aspects of his personality. He's now a bitter, arrogant, conniving red bastard who now serves as a champion for a sniveling mass of Kraft macaroni. Even as I wrote this, I kinda had to think to myself why I was so enthralled by this character. How could I like Magnus despite how much he fucked up? But I can't help but sympathize with him. Some people just kinda crumble under immense pressure and will zig when the clear best course of action is to zag. And hell, I completely understand why people hate his guts. I like him and he still pisses me off. But it's undeniable that his contribution to the story is why we have the universe we have now. His decisions were a key factor in the culmination of the grimdark state of the galaxy. You know, the true main theme of the setting. And it's why I love the franchise. I really think he's a brilliantly written character, and the amount of people who are split on between hating him and loving him show that. If you've watched the original version of this video on Arthur's collab, you'd remember that I talked about the connection with Darth Vader that I had with Magnus the Red. I wasn't exactly happy with that portion, but if you want to see it, go check out Arthur's video, as you should. But for this more personal version, I just want to talk a little bit more on why I like Magnus to begin with. I want to say I was a sophomore in high school when I got into 40k. I had a very minimal understanding of 40k at the time. I had only really watched my dad play Space Marine, and that was about the extent of my knowledge. But I had a couple of friends in high school that were really into the lore. They're actually kind of the reason why I got into 40k. We were gonna play, but they kind of dropped it like a hot rock and just stuck to the lore. While I, on the other hand, decided to paint out of spite because I bought a bunch of miniatures that I didn't have anything else to do with. But one of my buddies lent me one of his books, and it was on Magnus. Yeah, it's a little bit of nostalgia on why I like the character so much. But I don't really think that matters too much. Above everything, he's just a really interesting character. And I have him and many other characters to thank for acting as kind of a bridge to my favorite hobby. I always hope for the idea that he could be redeemed, but with all that shard nonsense, it's a little bleak. Though at the same time, if the Emperor think that Captain Stanko here can be redeemed, I'm more than inclined to believe that good old Maggie can as well. He definitely is a hate-to-love and love-to-hate character, but he has a very special place in my heart. Much like a mega collaboration featuring some of the best 40k YouTubers on the entire platform. I really can't thank Arthur enough for what he's done for my channel, and for many others. So please, if you liked what you saw, leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more, and check out the main video. There's a lot of really talented people that worked on this project, and it kinda inspired me to do more for the lore stuff. But hey, I think I've flapped my beak enough. Go check out Arthur's channel, and remember to mishmash, kit bash, and paint some fantastic miniatures. And you're gonna. I promise. See ya.
What is wrong with you? Why are you blue? Ugh.